All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to PM Therapy Podcast Live. By the way, if you can hear us, please just let us know in the chat. Just want to make sure. I think we are live. And oh yeah, I think that's Galen Low 550
That's
saying.
me testing the chat.
I was like, that was really fast. All right. By the way, if you can hear us, just let us know in the chat. But I think we're live. All right. So welcome everybody. Um, Today's topic is going to be what separates 100 kpm from a 200 kpm, and I am Mukhtar Kadiri, and I'm going to be digging into this topic with Galen. But as we are, I know people are joining in, but please just do let us know that you can hear us. And you can also let us know where you're calling in from. So just, the city you're calling in from. It's always nice to sort of know where people are calling in from. All right. So, yeah, I guess I can go ahead and introduce myself, and then I'll let Galen introduce himself. So my name is Mukhtar, and I have been in the project program management space for about 17 years now. Yeah, over 17 years. And I've worked in various industries: tech, healthcare, real estate, oil and gas. And I have led, teams. I have been hired, so I've been on both sides. And yeah, I'm really excited to. So right now, what I do is that I help people land 100 to 300 kpm roles. So that's me, Galen. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Galen. I am the co-founder of a little community called the Digital Project Manager. We are all about supporting project managers and project leaders working in the digital space, leading projects that involve people, pixels, and code. My background is I was a digital agency PM. I moved up to agency leadership, and then we kind of went down this quasi-entrepreneurial path. So same as you, Mukhtar, I'm somebody who has been hired. I've led teams of project managers. I've dabbled in business development and account management. And I've sat at the table where we are making strategic hiring decisions and we are crafting business strategy. And that's what I want to bring to the table today, almost like both those lenses and how they pair together. We're a community. We also have some training. If you want to check us out, we're at thedpm.com.
Amazing. So people, the chats have started flowing in. Hello, Galen from Toronto, Canada. Hello. Yeah, so both Galen and I are in Toronto, Canada. Hello, Patrick from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I used to live in Lubbock, Texas, which is close to Oklahoma. Hello, Pamisha from Toronto. Hello, Amy from Toronto. Prashant, you didn't quite say where you're from. Oh, Mississauga, nice.
Mississauga, yeah, in our hood.
D from GTA, Mandar from Pune, India. Tatiana from Belgrade, Serbia. Nice. I think this is the first time I've seen somebody say they're from Serbia. Welcome. So I know more people are joining, so please just say where you're calling in from. All right. So let me lay the scene, or let me set the scene, I should say, for this conversation. So what really separates 100k PM from a 200k PM? Is it experience? Is it certifications? Is it the industry, right? So this is something that we're going to dig in, and both Galen and I have perspectives from both sides, from hiring and also from being hired, and also from even helping people get hired, right? So I would really like to have this healthy, robust conversation with you, Galen. The other thing that I would say is please chime in with your comments, right? Because this is a discussion between all of us, right? So we're going to get to questions and comments, as we'll get to questions towards the end, but we will try to weave in comments as we go along. All right. So the way we're gonna try to have this conversation, I'm not sure how the direction this conversation will go, but the way we're going to try to have this conversation is, three things. First of all, where are we currently right now? So what's the current reality of the PM space, the job market right now? So that's one. And then the second will be, remind me again, what's the second? Oh yeah. How is the PM role evolving? Just given the current reality, how is the PM role evolving? And then what do we do to move towards this very high paying, the 200 mark, the 300 mark and above, right? Did I get that right, Galen?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
All right. So Galen, where are we currently at right now? What's the state of the market right now for PMs?
Gosh, okay. Well, we are in a state of disruption. I think everyone knows that. I think that's why a lot of folks are here listening to this. There's a lot of change in business. It is about AI, around AI, but that's not the main core of it, in my opinion. I think it is disruptive to business, and it's given us an opportunity to rethink what work is, what business is, what roles are. And so I would say we're at a state where we can throw everything out, and that's good and bad, right? So everything we knew about what roles and what job titles mean, that's all shifting. And that can be an opportunity for a lot of folks to be able to recraft what that role looks like. And it can leave some people behind. So, I'm not going to come here and say that everyone can, suddenly tomorrow, like double their salary, like go for it. I think it's a journey. And I think there'll be ups and downs, but ultimately, and I think I see this in my feed every day. We haven't really got a choice. We need to sort of formulate our mindset and opinion about where we're going. We need to listen and talk to people about where they're heading. And we need to shoot an arrow through the fog and hope we hit the target. I think that's kind of the best bet right now.
Okay.
I'll flip it around to you though. Where do you think we're at?
Yeah, no. I think there's definitely, I was going to say activity, but there's more than activity. There's definitely a lot going on. I think there is volatility, there is disruption, like you mentioned, and there's a lot of movement in the labor force, right? So we're seeing a lot of layoffs happening, and it's happening across the board. Like recently, somebody came to my group, and this person was with Microsoft at high level. Person was just laid off, and the caliber of people that are also coming onto the market, like it doesn't quite matter whether you're performing at a high level. Like another instance is like there's this person that I met who she is like, there's a kind of people that when you just meet them, you're just like, I won't be surprised if you are like a 30 under 30. You are like, they're just talented. Like she's ex McKinsey, ex Deloitte, and she's just, she's not quite old. Like maybe she's young. She appeared to be young, but what she's accomplished in her career is just like astounding. And she's been on the market for a year.
Wow.
Looking right, and she's like, when you hear her speak and everything, like you're just like, I would hire you in a heartbeat, right? So this is sort of the situation that we are in, and she's probably like one of many, right? So I think it's a very tough market, but I think at the same time we're also seeing people that are still having success, right? And I think we'll dig into that. So that's my take. So I think there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of volatility. The AI piece, I don't know. I feel like that's interesting. And I really want to dig into this with you, Galen, because I'm not sure. There's a lot of hype around AI. You hear that AI is taking people's jobs. Like some of these headline layoffs have been, some of them have been attributed to AI. At the same time, if you look at the companies that are growing and hiring people, they're AI companies, right? So if you look at the tech space, there's this thing called the SaaS apocalypse, right? Where it's like a lot of investors are dropping and dumping traditional enterprise software companies because they are sort of spooked by what AI agents can do. Like Replit, you can build like software immediately, right? So a lot of people are like, okay, AI is coming to eat software. So they're dropping, well, not a lot of people, like some investors are dropping the traditional SaaS companies. And then AI companies that are like, or AI first companies are really benefiting. So, it's almost like conflicting stories. On the one hand, people are attributing layoffs to AI. On the other hand, AI is causing a lot of hiring. And then you also have the other story or angle that a lot of companies are saying, oh, we've invested a lot of all of this money into AI, but we're not seeing the returns, right? So I don't know, what are your thoughts there? Like there are all these, and there are many more angles, and one more is that me personally, I use AI day in, day out. So when people say, I don't see returns on AI, like we've invested all this money, like I really don't know I can't really relate to that. you know. So what are your thoughts there? So there are all these sort of, it's almost like maybe conflicting stories. So can you make
Yeah,
sense of all
let
of
me
this?
let me
No
let me
pressure.
zoom out. I want to take this opportunity to look at it from like a business owner operator perspective. And I alluded to it earlier because AI appears on the surface to be the reason for all these things, all this disruption, all this change. But when you zoom out and think about how an organization works, so you mentioned earlier mass layoffs sometimes will increase shareholder value, right? Like stocks will go up because clearly, if you've done a mass layoff, then you have a strategy for probably leveraging AI or at least leaning out your business so that you're getting more value with less cost. And headcount, payroll being like the major expense for a business, right? People is the cost. So if you can operate your business with less cost, that's going to be more attractive to investors. Not everything is publicly traded. Not everyone has, shareholders per se. But I think the principle still applies because what AI did is it introduced the idea that work that was once done by humans who eat, sleep, take breaks, have sick days, can now be done 10 times faster. Some of it can be done 10 times faster by AI, which does not need to sleep, eat, take breaks, or sick days. And even that value proposition is just immensely different. And under that premise, whether or not we've arrived there, under that premise, business has to change. Because if we're looking at, okay, well, then why are we paying all these people? And then I think that's where it starts. So it starts around AI, but I think it goes into the conversation of like, do we even have the right structure? I know a lot of organizations, like just hearsay, I guess I should say. But yeah, they're saying AI to their board, but actually they're covering for mishires. They've been mishiring since the pandemic. They were, recouping. They were trying to re-strategize what their business looks like and trying to get people back into the office. Trying to like staff up, like secure talent that was on the marketplace. And now they're like, wait, do we even need those people? What can we do? Are we even operating, in the most efficient way? And I think that's driving a lot of the mass layoffs. So the press release says AI, AI, AI. But I think it's also businesses reconfiguring, knowing that they need to reconfigure based on the premise that AI or something will force business to run more lean, will force the workforce to do more things, and ultimately will be able to amplify, like multiply the value that's coming out of these organizations. That's the theory. But I think you raised a really good point. You said some people are not seeing the ROI yet. And I was reading a post the other day, and again, this is just like I skimmed it. It was in my feed. Don't quote me on this, but someone had posted about the impact of electricity on factories in the United States, and it took decades for some of these factories to reconfigure. They're like steam, gas, whatever. We're just gonna keep running like electricity. So what? And it took decades for them to actually reconfigure their business and then start seeing the return on that. And I think we're going to see that today, but like maybe a little faster than that. But I think there's going to be immense lag. And we are placing a lot of bets. Businesses are placing a lot of bets on how this is going to play out. You can't afford to not play because you'll be behind. At the same time, nobody knows how to get to the goal quite yet. And that goal is distant. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. It might not even be like a year from now. I think everything needs to reconfigure. And I think that's what we're seeing. And just to circle back on the person you mentioned, the very impressive 30 under 30 working for, management consulting companies, like McKinsey. I think that's where I saw it first, because all of these consultancies, all these agencies, they're under pressure because it's a client services based business. So they have to be able to tell their clients, listen, for the dollars that you're going to pay, or you're going to spend for my team's work, we're going to be able to leverage AI in our work so that you pay less. And we're going to help you figure out AI so that you can also do the same thing. So they kind of have to lead that charge. And I think it's actually quite tough in that business right now. Management consulting, agencies, professional services, it's a harder proposition to be like, yeah, let's just hire another PM. Hey, let's pay them, $200K a year, $250,000 a year. It's like a tough value proposition unless it's going to lead to or map towards a future where the entire business has been reconfigured.
Yeah, and just one thing. So one thing to add there as you're speaking. So my mom is a professor. She's been in academia for over 40 years.
Wow.
And she's not, she's like a professor in one of the like the science, like she studies algae and phytoplankton, like it's
Cool.
so it's really It's really, I don't really know what this is like gibberish to me. But she visited us a couple of weeks ago, and she really started using ChatGPT because she's always like, she's a very prolific. She publishes a lot of papers, right? She just loves doing that, and she was blown away with ChatGPT, right? So it's amazing because like this is somebody that has spent her whole life in academia, 40 years. She's mentored other professors, and like she's surprised at like what ChatGPT is actually helping. So I guess to your point that management consulting is they need to really rethink, and there's this threat of ChatGPT, like that just came up for me, and I think a lot of what we do as PMs as well is a lot of synthesis and knowledge work, right? So I don't know, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, and I think I see it in the chat as well. Some really good questions coming through about, how is the role going to change? How are we going to stay relevant? I think we're segueing there anyways, but I do think that it is my opinion. Feel free to disagree, but it is my opinion that using AI day to day to do work stuff in any industry will soon become as expected as being able to type. And I think I don't know that we're always looking forward at that moment. Right now, it feels like, there's so much to learn. There's so many tools to try. We have to use it for everything. We have to build these systems. We have to replace things. We have to rethink how we work with AI teammates. And it's this overwhelming, like, oh gosh, AI is the thing. And my feed is that too, right? I was actually on the fence, to be honest with you, last year to be like, should we start talking about AI and project management? Or is that kind of ick? And now it's everything. But imagine 3-5 years from now, I don't think my feed will look like that. I think it'll look different. I think people will be like, yeah, so what? Like AI, of course, right? And I think there's this moment in time where right now, I think people are, they're gathering up all the certifications, they're taking all the AI courses. And I think that's good from an education standpoint. I think we need to be using it. I think you've got the right idea. Your mom's got the right idea to be like, okay, well, let's start using it. But I think if you're pinning your hopes on the fact that you will be differentiated in the marketplace because you've got this custom GPT that you built, I think that's going to be great, home row, in a year and a half. I think it's going to go to the next thing. So I wouldn't pin all my hopes and dreams on things happening today.
Right.
I would pin my hopes and dreams on following the trend and staying a little bit ahead of it and understanding what the business world needs from its workforce. And speaking that language and mapping your use cases to that. Right. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. So I think, so just to, I know some people are joining, but we're talking about the current state as we are right now. And I think the common theme here is that there's a lot of volatility, right? And, some of that can be attributed to AI. Some of that is just the macroeconomic conditions. We also have, tariffs, going in all directions, right? So that's also contributing. There is also the geopolitical activities that are happening, in the Middle East, that's also contributing to some of this volatility right now. One other thing that I see, and I would like to hear your perspective on this, is a lot of companies are trying to flatten the org, right? I read, was it Bayer, yeah, I need to check, but I think they have laid off, or they're going to lay off 5,000 management positions, not 5,000 people, management positions. And I don't quote me on this, but I think somebody said they removed 6 to 7 layers. So and this is not just also Facebook, their year of efficiency, they want to remove layers, right? So what are your thoughts there? As organizations are becoming flatter and flatter, what are your thoughts there, and what do you think that means for us PMs?
I mean, let me sit on the fence a little on this one, because I would say on the one hand, yeah, when you look at bloat, I don't know if anyone here plays Fallout or watched the Fallout series, but there's this sort of jab about management being the answer to all the world's problems, and yet also the cause of all of them as well. And I think a lot of organizations are taking that posture right now to be well, what does this people leader actually do? Are they just a middle manager that's, transmitting information up and down? And, are they just sort of managing performance? And is that still valuable why is this middle piece getting paid more than the people who are doing the work, and maybe getting paid, towards a salary of like a director level or an executive? And what are they really doing? And don't get me wrong, I've looked at a number of organizations, especially enterprise organizations, where you're like, wow, yeah, there is this like layer that it's easy to get away with like not doing much, and they are perpetuating that myth that middle management is like people who do nothing. Right, like it's ultimately that question, like, what do you even do, right? And I think project managers get that a lot as well. But I want to flip it, because I think, I'm all for a flat hierarchy. I'm all for like efficiency. I think it can really sort of close the gap and make the work more relatable. But like, there's middle management for a reason. And it's because humans that collaborate with one another, like, it's messy. There's a reason why project managers exist. It's because all of this sort of collaboration management is chaotic. It's messy. It needs important decisions to be made by someone who's got boots on the ground, not someone who is, higher up in an organization, used to making more strategic executive decisions. And I think that's kind of where we might see a lot of friction and more chaos, and organizations falling on their face because they removed 6 or 7 layers in the middle. But it's to organize these people. Like when you look at something like and I don't know a lot about the military, but like military structure and hierarchy, rank and file is there for a reason. Not necessarily for every day, but like when things go wrong, when there's chaos, like everyone kind of knows what to do. It's somebody's job to make sure that they're making the right calls, out in the field, from central command, to pivot and adapt. And I think there might be less of an ability for an organization to pivot and adapt if they're missing some of those layers. So that's my fence sitter answer. I would say it makes logical sense. You're like, okay, well, we have to lean out the business, AI or not. We've got to use this moment to stay competitive by leaning out the business. And where is there some fat to trim? But at the same time, you cut too deep, and when like steady state turns into like a bit of chaos, I don't know that every organization is going to be able to like handle and manage that chaos if they've removed all these layers in between.
Right. So, sorry.
No, go for it. I was going to ask your take, man.
Yeah. So I definitely hear you, but I want to take a contrarian view.
Let's do it.
Right. So, because I like healthy debates, right? So let me take a contrarian view to that. So, a lot of, I think, to your point before, about like, the layoffs and all of that. So I think a lot of what's happening right now is that people are still correcting for the COVID madness, right? When there was a lot of hiring. So I think that, a lot of organizations just grew, right? And this is a way of streamlining. So that's one. So I think the organization should be at the right size, because if you get above a certain size, it just becomes slow, right? So to your point on, like you might need some of these layers so that you can pivot quickly. One can make the opposite argument, right? Actually, you need to be leaner. You don't need to take a long time to make a decision, right? From the CEO all the way down to the bottom layer, there should be, just a few layers so that, there's quick decision making, right? So that will be one argument, on the contrarian side. But at the same time, if I were to go to, your side, what's happening now is that you're having a manager that used to look after or that had a team of 5 people. Now that manager has a team of 15 people. So that, I mean, no matter how efficient that manager is, that manager will not be able to do justice. And really, like one-on-ones will suffer. And, I see a lot of things coming from this, like burnout, because you're not as aligned. And I feel like maybe there is an opportunity for PMs here, because number one, like that executive that now has more reports, there's no way that executive is going to be driving execution, right? Because like you cannot, like you need somebody to be able to give an initiative the love, the focus, the priority to drive that all the way onto the finish line. Because if you have a VP's, like there's this priority and the VP is doing that, like it's not going to work, right? So I think this is an opportunity for PMs, right? Where it's like, all right, this manager has 15 directors reporting to him and like 50 initiatives. the PM now has to work hand in hand with that VP, with the
Mm.
CTO, to ensure that they execute on strategy. And we're going to talk about this. And I firmly believe that as PMs, our skill is really that we execute. Like, that is what we do. You come up with your strategy, what will help you do is that we'll help you deliver and we'll execute. So I think that's really what we do. And no matter what technology comes, no matter how you change the name of the role, at the end of the day, every company needs to execute. You're going to have a strategy and you're going to need to execute. And I think that's what we do best. I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I'm going to take that one further. So like you remove middle layers, it collapses things. So to your first point, yeah, I think it could shorten decision making. I just think that the executives who used to have 6 layers between them and the work aren't necessarily going to be great at making snap, judgment calls for day-to-day decisions. So they'll need to reconfigure the way they work. I think on the professional development side, on the one-to-one side and how people are managed, I think that's going to change completely. I think it's going to be a little bit more of the way we look at professional development, where it's like, here's a bucket of stuff, help yourself, you sort yourself out. No one's going to come and hold your hand and talk you through this and help you grow your career path and blah, blah, blah. I think we're going to move in that direction with that flatness. But I think the one thing I wanted to point out, in terms of optionality, right? So I agree with you. And I think you're saying this, but I think maybe this is a more scathing way to say it, which is if they're going to cut out 6 layers of management, grab up that money and be that, $250,000 a year PM. You're going to do probably more than just execute, but you are that connector between execution and strategy. So you need to speak both languages. So I think that's a fair play. The other side, though, in terms of options, would be actually project management as a skill becomes something that everybody needs to have. Execution has to be something that everybody has. You have to be ready to put on that hat, whether you are a designer, whether you are an accountant, whether you are in higher education. It's expected of you that you are able to execute and deliver. And, just like a class project, right? It's like, okay, who's going to lead this? Okay, it's me. Do you know how? Yeah, I think so. I've got AI. I did a course, let's go. And that will be the person. And then you have a hybrid role where you have a deputized or informal project manager who is also doing the work, but is accountable or responsible for doing that work. That is another path that I see organizations going down. They're hybridizing roles. They're introducing more of a strategy component to what the role entails. And it is more about speaking the language of the business and the strategy, translating that down. Yes, executing, but also making sure it actually gets to the outcome that is the component of the strategy, because the strategy doesn't go unless you achieve your goals for this project. And that doesn't mean having a really pretty project plan or having a really good, RAID log. It comes with understanding what the business needs in terms of value and delivering that value. And then the last thing I'll say on it is that in all of this, I think it's important to remember that your salary is an investment. I talk to a lot of people, and it's almost I don't want to throw shade, but there's a certain entitlement, I think, in the marketplace right now, where it's these businesses make money. They have a role. It's a project manager role. I don't have a role, or I'm looking to make a switch. I deserve that role. But I think it's okay, well, what are they getting in return? And I think that comes back to the title of this, right? It's will they get over $200,000 and much more than over $200,000 in return on their investment for bringing you on? And if not, then why? Why would they hire you and pay you that much? Not because that's market rate or not because they're charitable. They've got to get a return on their investment, and that's going to look like a lot of different things. I can go into that a little bit more, but I'll pause there.
Right. No, 100%. I agree. And I usually tell my clients that at the end of the day, a company is about to spend $200,000, $500,000 on you. What are you going to do? Also think about before you bought your first house, if you actually you did a lot of things. You brought somebody to come inspect the house. You really dotted your I's and crossed your T's, right, before you made that investment. And it's the same with the company, and especially more so now, where it's there's so many people out there that are looking. And a lot of companies also don't want to. There's this fear of making the wrong choice, right? So even more so now. That's the case. So one thing came to mind when you were speaking about when it comes to execution. So execution as a discipline, I really like what you mentioned, that people in their individual roles, it's kind of like everybody sort of needs to get better at execution, right? Especially when things are leaner. And it reminds me of, I think I've mentioned this before in the post. So there are like three levels. Like as a project manager in an organization, there are three levels of how do I want to call it out? There are three levels of project management, so to speak. But let me break this down. So there is the, let me take a step back. Now, a lot of times, as a project manager in an organization, a lot of times you don't have enough bandwidth, right? And one of the ways to actually help with that is by empowering others to be better at project management, right? So I remember I was speaking with somebody from Shopify, and she implemented this thing where it's like there are three levels of project. There's like DIY project management, where you sort of empower other people, like with templates, best practices videos, and all of this is like self-serve, right? So you give this to to the team lead in engineering, to the team lead, to the designer, so that they can actually benefit from project management practices in their own little projects. All right. And then there's, level 2, where it's like, okay, they can come to you for consulting. So maybe these are like projects within teams, maybe like the engineering team or the marketing team. Like it's not really cross-functional. Like, they don't need to hire you full-time, right? So they can come and then you can give them advice, or, it's almost like you're a consultant. And then there's a level 3 where it's like you now take on this initiative. So these are the most critical initiatives, strategic, cross-functional, where the stakes are high. So this is now where you take the reins, right? So yeah, I think I did that in one organization, and people really love that, like just that 3 steps. So what that does is that you're empowering the organization when it comes to project management. You're developing that skill, and in a way, you might feel like, okay, I'm training people to do my job, but that actually frees you up to be able to do more things, and then it's like your impact is even more multiplied. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that. I think, everything needs levels. I think we think too much in black and white. I'm the project manager and you're not, I think is not a very effective way to think about it. I do agree with you. I think that we as project managers, especially folks who've been doing it a while, like can be the ambassadors of change to help support folks who do need to be more execution oriented. It does beg the question of then what do we do and what is our value? I would almost flip it. I put it in the chat as well. I think there was a really good question about, like, hey, if we wanted to like move into a 200K plus salaried job in the next 12 months, like what are our best moves? And, my TLDR is that like, I think you need to be someone who builds an economy of value beneath you. Right? Like if you think about what a celebrity is, or like an NHL hockey player who gets paid multiple millions of dollars. Why? You just play a game. That's not necessarily true. You create an economy. Everyone who's buying your jersey, you're helping move, like you're supporting businesses underneath that. You're creating an economy. So I would say that would be your move. Don't train somebody so that you become like unvaluable. Train people so that you're creating this economy of value. You can look at it and go, look, before, when it was just that informal layer of project management, just get it done. I don't know, we're not going to train you. Hope it goes okay. All those projects, those side of desk projects suddenly are actually landing. Suddenly we're doing some training. Those people are actually hitting their dates. We're getting ROI on those little projects that were kind of like, they used to never see the light of day. And that middle layer, we're more profitable because we've built systems around it. It's like, okay, yeah, I can't train everyone to suddenly have 20 years of experience as a project manager, but I can implement AI tools that help. I can sort of create a community of practice where we are sharing information and we're getting better results there. And then at the top, and one of the examples I put in there was like, okay, well, like how can you yourself create your own economy? So you're going to have this team of skilled cross-functional professionals who can execute. So that sort of multiplies the impact of project management within your organization. And then you yourself have created transformation in a way that makes the business more efficient and deliver more value. And the other thing that I had in there was like, also like, businesses are going to need to like move around, move their market around, move who their customer is. If you can also use that to like help a business move upstream to like a higher value clientele or to more complex projects or to a different market, like now you're cooking with gas. You are now like indisputably valuable as like a, let's call it like a celebrity PM in an organization, not because you're good at PMing, but because you're good at understanding how execution delivers more value to an organization and where you can eliminate bloat and create efficiencies so that that value increases. And you're at the tip of that spear rather than being a player within it. I think that for me, like, that scales upward a lot more than thinking of someone who is just going to, even coming in to like manage a really big project. Yeah, there's going to be good ROI on that. Like a $2 billion project, like, yeah, it's a no brainer. Pay for a project manager, pay them good money, make sure it lands well. But I think being part of the infrastructure that scales a business into value, into more value, that's the theme. The theme isn't AI. The theme is scaling value without scaling headcount. That's the sort of promise of AI, but it's also now the mindset of most businesses.
Right.
Anyways, I'll pause there.
Yeah, no. I think, we're now sort of going to how the role needs to evolve, right? So we talked about like the current state where it's like, all right, there's a lot of activity happening right now, and it's scary from it could be scary, but there's also an opportunity, right? So now we're not sort of pivoting into how can we really make the best of this opportunity. But before we dive into that proper, I know we've touched on this a bit, but how do you see the PM role evolving?
I mean, so some of the folks in the audience, maybe this is a no-brainer, but I would say that like it needs to move deeper into a business lens. And I had posted, you had pointed this out in our conversation earlier. I was quite critical of the slogan, like, "Oh, project managers, need to deliver outcomes, not just outputs." And my criticism of it was that people are saying it without understanding what needs to change. In other words, they're saying that they do it now, and I don't think that's true across the board. I think that is true in some areas, but I don't think it's true across the board. I think for anyone who does not fundamentally understand how the business that they work within delivers value and makes money and what that flywheel looks like and what the variables are, I think you're dead in the water in 5 years. Because no one's going to care if you are good at execution and like rallying people together if you're still driving, this project that doesn't hit the value, that just goes off a cliff, that doesn't respond to the market. And like, if you can understand how much it's worth, for example, to like deliver early, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, classic. Well, I was Pinbock 5th edition, but it was like, actually delivering sooner is bad. And you're like, okay, but let's unpack that. When is it bad? Why is it bad? Sure, I understand. Maybe it's like how we plan resources and the operational mechanism of delivery. But if you can open a hotel 2 months earlier, be the first to market, build brand loyalty, like that's something worth having a conversation about. I'm not saying go and do it as a project manager. I'm saying surface some of these things as like positive risks, because positive risks are opportunity. Not all risk is negative. You can, sing the song all day long to be like, oh, without me, your project would crash. So therefore, whatever that value is, I'm worth that much. I would look at it the other way. Be like, with me at the helm, and I understand your business, I understand the flywheel, I've got experience within it. Like, I'm going to be that person who surfaces the right opportunities to you to be like, listen, we've got an opportunity here to do more, or we've got like a dependency here. Like this needs the focus. This needs a priority more than my project does. You have to look beyond your project, look beyond execution, be thinking about the business and how it actually generates value. That's the main pivot I think we'll see in the role.
So do you think, okay, if I'm hearing you correctly now, so there's the strategy piece and then there's the execution piece, right? So if I'm understanding you correctly, like the execution piece is basically what we've done before, right? It is, you have your plan, risk management, you get the project to the finish line. So are you saying that now project managers need to go more into the strategy realm? Is that what I'm hearing you say, or no? Or am I
want to be really tricky. Like, I want to be really careful about that because I think there's a lot of talk, and I'm being quite critical. But it's like, the like project managers or CEOs. I'm like, yes, but like, understand what a CEO does, and like they're responsible for the livelihood of the entire organization, including strategy, including like more than just delivering a project. But yes, you are making decisions around budget and people, and like it does involve strategy. I think you said it well, really. Like you said it really well earlier, where it's like execution what we're really talking about is converting strategy to execution. Which means understanding the strategy. It doesn't mean necessarily you're there at strat planning and suddenly you're an executive. And like I would take that idea and I just like walk it back for anyone who's like, oh yeah, like I guess I'm an exec now. Like not quite. I think that's part of it. You have to understand what an exec is responsible for and what they do, like what that accountability looks like before you can say, yeah, I'm a CEO. I'm just have a project manager title. Like I would be careful about that. I'd be careful about that being your next step. It's that middle layer that is being created. And I think it's a really good question here. I was typing it out, but Keith had asked, like, is there even like enough room for more than just a handful of like these hyper strategic PMs in an organization? Right. And what I was typing was like, for now, no, there isn't enough room. But also like we are in the midst of transformation where jobs that will be created by this pressure cooker that is like orbiting around AI, I think there will be new opportunities created. There will be other work. But right now, no, I don't think you're going to have 25, hyper strategic PMs in a small organization, just like you would have like in the agency world where you're like, okay, yeah, like, maybe we've got 12 to 20 PMs in an organization where their staff size is like 200 to 300 people. Yeah, that seems right. Where, project is our economic engine, right? That's how we make money. So it makes sense. But yeah, I think there will be fewer roles for PMs who are like strategic, unless a business is sort of scaling horizontally and like just doing more projects. But yeah, I think there's going to be this moment in time where there are fewer PM roles than there are PMs, probably already happening now based on what we're talking about. But eventually, like there's an eventuality where there will be other roles like in risk management and change management and like process design and sort of ways of working, overall collaboration management, different structures of team leadership. Like the folks who have PM skill sets, there will be something for them to do. It doesn't feel like that right now, probably, and it's probably not that way right now. But I think that's like when I'm looking ahead, I'm like, okay, yeah, hyper strategic PM. Again, not an executive, not like the strategist, the person who understands it well enough to steer the ship towards value, I think will be very important. Also, a whole bunch of other jobs will are coming up now, might not have like a job title right now. And I think that's my other thing. I would say, like, let's not fixate too deeply on the job title right now. Let's look at our skill set. Let's look at our skill set in aggregate, whether, you may have come from like a telecom background. That's part of your mix now. And I think what we will see is organizations and, and talent pairing up based on a pretty unique blend of skills, not because you do project management stuff and you like tick all the boxes for that role that was probably from an Indeed template anyways, but actually understanding the business and value, and the business understanding what value you can bring to the table because you have the right like fit and the right mix. And a job title might not be the thing that you wanted to be when you grew up. And I think that's going to be okay. I think job titles are going to be, they're already trending towards not mattering as much. And I think we'll see that. So like, yeah, I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but I do want to be realistic about the fact that there's probably not enough seats on the bus right now, and that's hard. But also there will be more opportunities to do different things. It's happening now. I think it will continue happening. And in 5 years from now, you'll be like, remember when project manager was a title? But it might be a good thing. And it might be you might land in a good place where your role and your responsibility is different than the way we think of the stereotype as a project manager, right? Like we are glorified coxswains, right? Like it's not the stereotype of a project manager is not high value. So how do we get to a vision of us being high value? And let's move in that direction.
Right. No, I love this. I love this discussion. So I have I think I have a somewhat different perspective. And hear me out. I'm thinking out loud here, so it's not like I've given this a lot of thought. So I've been a PM in different environments, right? So I've been a PM where there are well-established processes. There's a PMO in place, and you just sort of come in and you have your project, you execute. I've also been a founding PM where it's like these people are growing fast. They didn't know that they needed a PM. And somebody convinced them, and I was like a risky hire. All right, let's see what project managers are made of. And I became a partner to the executive team. And because of that, like we built a project management function, right? So in a way, like that hyper PM point, I feel like that was me in that initial environment where it's like they didn't even know that they needed PMs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I came in there, I was working with the executive team and helping them on their most critical initiatives, right? Because like they were just really failing, right? And then when we landed, several projects successfully, they're like, okay, wow, we really need to build this into a function, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think like, so in order to be able to be that quote unquote hyper PM, like you need to have had battle scars, you need to have failed, because you don't just learn, like you can't just get your PMP and become the hyper PM. Like you need to sort of make your way up there, right? So I see this hierarchy, so to speak, right? Because I feel like if you come in there as like a young PM, you would not like you fall flat on your face. You would not be what they need, right? But as the hyper PM builds that project management function, you can come in there and support that hyper PM, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this is sort of how I see it. And just different environments need different people. And it could get to a point whereby, okay, that hyper PM has built this very well-oiled execution machine. And the hyper PM is like, okay, my job here is done. I don't really like, all these processes. I'm going to go help another scale up, get to the same level. Like some people, like that's what they enjoy. Like they enjoy taking people from that, chaos all the way to stability, and then they move on to there. So this is sort of how I see things. And I'm curious, what do you think about that?
I mean, like here's where probably you and I are showing our age. I'm like, well, you could still be youngish. So in other words, yeah, maybe if you're still kind of like finding your feet, you're fresh out of school, or you're early in your career, yeah, maybe it's not in the cards for you to be a hyper PM. But I also think you don't have to be deeply experienced if you can be like what I would call like the fire starter, the ignition for something. Business realizes they have a need, they're gonna like find someone who is willing to like enter into ambiguity with very high stakes to like figure something out, and you become that sort of ignition. And that is a great example of you sort of going in and building an economy underneath you. And by the way, if anyone's listening and that's you, get paid. Like the theme of this is like, cool, like you're worth more than the average PM because you're driving this economy and you're driving value and driving efficiency beneath, and avoiding all of these like delivery issues that have been like putting a lid on the amount of value that they can actually achieve. And then I guess I would say, yes, if you're going to go in and slot into that business, they've stood up like a project management function, and you are a PM and you maybe have a certification, but I don't think that's going to mean that you are going to like thrive in this environment. I think that's your like hall pass to say, this is something I care about. This is something I can speak the language around. I've got a lot to learn, but I've got a lot to contribute. And then I think you're getting in there. I think coming back to like the title of this and some of the questions in the chat, it's like, are you likely to enter that role and be making $200K a year? I'd say it depends. So in our community, I asked this question and folks are like, honestly, like depending where you live, 200K sounds like just a regular salary to a lot of us now. Mm-hmm. Cost of living is going up. You live in New York, you live in like Seattle, you live in San Fran, you live in Toronto. Like, yeah, like they have to like keep up with cost of living. But also I would say that, coming in to a team of project managers, I think if you want to be like really commanding earning power, I'd look for a couple of things. I'd look for the scenario you gave, right, where it's transformation is happening and they see the value of solid delivery and they're willing to pay for that. I would say, opportunities where a business is trying to shift in market, right? Because the value of having someone there to either, go upstream or enter a new market, maybe they're going into something more regulated, maybe, they're making a shift. And then that value of that person is going to increase because, it's kind of like the gold rush, right? It's like, all right, I need people to be able to like, I'm not very up on my gold sort of mining, but I need someone to just sort of pan, right? Go to the river with the pan and do the thing. But because my art, like what I stand to earn is so high, I'm willing to pay them quite a bit. especially if it's like ambiguous, especially if like we're still figuring things out. But like, let's go. Like, I'm willing to pay you. That might be maybe a more, you might find that to be a more temporary role. They're like, okay, well, there's gold. Well, there's a gold rush. Let's get people in. Let's pay them really well so they stay, so they, commit, so that they deliver. But once we get there, maybe we don't need them anymore. And then I would say just like almost like rarity, right? Like an opportunity where it's like, okay, maybe it is a deeply specialized role. Maybe it matters that you know something about, SAP S/4HANA. Maybe it matters that you know something about the e-commerce platform, or the sort of defense industry, or things like that, where it's like, okay, you'll command a bit of a higher compensation because you know that stuff and can deliver. Our project manager. I'm not saying a hybrid role, but I'm just saying like domain knowledge. I think someone had said it in the chat as well. The domain expert advantage doesn't necessarily mean, don't become the best developer in the world necessarily, but there are going to be areas of specialization where it's going to matter to an organization, not across the board. Like nobody in like a digital agency cares if you have like aerospace engineering experience if they don't have an aerospace client. But you have to pair that and tell that story of value to actually sort of command that compensation. Otherwise, I'd say, Mukhtar, in your scenario, I'd be like, cool, Mukhtar came in, built this machine, and everyone we hire within it, average salary. It's fine because Mukhtar, he did the terraforming. He made it so that we can get value out of this, and now we just need people in the seats. That's different than, we're actually making a shift. Like there is change afoot, and if someone can contribute to that change and understand it, then that's valuable to us.
Right. Yeah. And just to, I guess from my perspective, I really agree. Like, because I'm also seeing people that are hitting 200 and even well above that. And so there are some things now. I mean, there's no general rule, but there are some things that I'm seeing. So one of them is that like these people are coming in and they're partnering with leadership, and they're building. So number one, they're partnering with leadership on like the highest priority initiatives, right? And a lot of times they come with like maybe it could be a domain expertise in something, right? Maybe technical, or maybe it could even be something even more specialized than like cybersecurity. But yeah, so there is that. But there are also some some foundation skills that that they should have. So when it comes to execution, like that's a given. So planning, risk management, all of that. When it comes to communication, so they're good communicators. Being able to adapt, right? I think one of the things that that we need to get good at as PMs is being able to learn fast with all of this volatility. So I think adaptability, also problem solving. So to me, like these are foundational skills that we need to have right now in this current state. Then as we now move into like other skill sets like emotional intelligence, I think that because burnout is a problem for PMs and also for the teams that PMs deal with. So I think we need to be better. We need to be more emotional intelligent, because I was speaking to this PM who has like been burnt out like 6-7 times. And I don't know if you saw this report on LinkedIn that we suffer from the highest rate of burnout. So I think in order for us to thrive in this new world, like we need to be better at emotional regulation and just be more emotionally intelligent. And of course there's also like influence without authority. So these are some skills. And then the last one, when it comes to more strategic skills, I think this business acumen is very, very important. Like I believe that you need to know how your company makes money, because when you know how they make money, that's how you would latch on to what is priority, and you will not be irrelevant, right? So you always be able to position your project in the right way, right? Because at the end of the day, if you want leaders to care, to listen, it's basically what's making them money, right? So you need to understand that. You need to be able to position yourself very well. And then the last one is, sorry, I thought about this, so I have a list. The last one is organizational savvy. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that there's always going to be politics where you go. It's not about do you want to get in the mud and be dirty, but how do you navigate? Because your project never exists in a vacuum. so you need to be able to, how do you navigate and get things done in an organization where you don't have authority? So I think these are the skill sets. And for people that I've seen sort of cross the 200K mark, they tend to have all of this, or at least they show promise of all of these. What are your thoughts, Galen?
I mean, the one I agree across the board in terms of like the skills that we need to hone. And I'm thinking of this as like a, from the lens of somebody who's seeking out their next opportunity, and want to sort of make a leap into, a higher compensation band. Like all the things you just mentioned, at least for me, I would say those aren't the things you like just list on your resume in like a bullet point form. You're like, I'm a great listener. I do well with ambiguity. Oh, I'm great with people. I play politics well. Like if you're expecting to like develop these skills as like a badge you wear, on your way into the job market, I would maybe pivot that into, more of a show don't tell model. How can you demonstrate? Like that's how you deliver results.
Right.
But like the results themselves should speak for themselves. And I think that's the storytelling that project managers across the board can probably all afford to get a little better at. It's really easy for us to look at that job posting and be like, and again, it's like this templated thing. Oh, responsible for managing scope and like decision making, facilitating communication, blah, 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 performance reporting, yada, yada, yada. That's not always what the organization even cares about. Like it might say it in the job posting, and then we're going to say, oh yeah, it's great. I'm going to like tailor my resume and I'm going to put together like a cover letter. I'm going to talk to people in this organization to be like, damn, I'm so good at like project management stuff. I'm so good with people. I'm so good at navigating ambiguity. I'm so good at like complexity. But like, it's just like, it's easy. It's too easy for people to say that you can't really hang your hat on it. You really do need to convert that into a story of how you've done that before. You need to convert that into like references of people who are, willing to vouch for you, because even though it's not necessarily going to be like references on your resume, oh yeah, we're going to call you references. It might not be that, but I guarantee you that if you're getting that 300K band, people are going to look around. Like you said about buying a home. I'm not just going to be like, yeah, they were very cool in the interview. Let's go. Let's spend $250,000 every year on this individual until either they quit or we decide to let them go. Like that is huge. We're going to get equipment for them. We are going to offer benefits. We are going to do this thing. These are big decisions. And so that needs to show up on paper. Like if you're in that band, your story shouldn't be, I'm great at project management. Your story should be, here is how I'm demonstrating that I understand business value, that I understand people. Don't say it out loud necessarily, but what is that story that you can tell that shows that demonstrates that proves that? And really you're getting somebody comfortable with the idea to invest $250,000 or more on you. And even if in the current economy that might not be like big money anymore, it certainly is a big decision for an organization, especially when on paper, when leaders talk to other leaders, they're like, project managers, yeah, that should be like $80,000 a year. Why would you spend $250,000 a year? You need to convince them.
Right. I mean, I think, in some places 200 might not be big money, but I think for most people, like there are VPs that earn below that, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it depends on. It's just funny, like they're just different. I spoke to a PM who was making 200 and she was living paycheck to paycheck. And then, there's another person who's making like a lot less than that. They're like a director with teams. So it's just like, they're different situations, right? So sorry, do you want to say something?
I was gonna say, what are some of the variables there? Like what are some of the levers that make that the case? I think I agree with you. I know PMs working for Amazon, like a decade ago, making $250,000 US clean. And I'm like, okay, it's because Amazon was in like high growth mode. The culture was like super high pressure. Like they wanted the best of the best and they wanted to keep them. And they definitely didn't want them to like start at Amazon and then go over to Meta and like, share all the trade secrets or whatever. So like there was like motivation behind it. But like, right. I don't know, I'm curious for you there. Cause like, I think you're right. I think just because you have a bunch of direct reports and you have all these other responsibilities doesn't mean suddenly you make more money. Right. There's a lot of variables.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah, I think it also depends on like there's so many variables. There is a company, the industry, the location, and also it could also be your leveling as well. Like, sometimes they might just take a chance on you because, all right, you're sort of going to the next level. So, they're placing a bet and then if you like live up to expectations, then they can now bump you up too. So there are just so many factors that go into that. But before we go to questions proper, there's one thing that I just want to, just to your point, like being able to show and not tell is very, very important. So I usually teach my clients this, like at the end of the day, everybody has problems. They have problems, they have fears, they have frustrations. It doesn't matter who you are. And a lot of times people have their top three, even though they've never articulated it. Everybody has their top three, I guarantee you. So it is your, like what I usually teach people is like it's your responsibility to try to understand what those are, right? And when you get into an interview, I mean, they might not necessarily tell you point blank, oh, these are my top three fears or top three frustrations, but you go into that interview with the heart of a consultant, with the mindset of a consultant. Like, I am a company of one, I have these skills, and I can help you. And then you try to do, it's almost like you're on a fact-finding mission. You're on a discovery call with them, as opposed to I'm being grilled in an interview, I'm being interrogated. No, you're coming into a partnership and to see whether you can actually help them succeed. So that interview is also a fact-finding mission as well. Like, what are your top challenges? So just imagine you're a consultant. At the end of your interviews, you digest and then you boil down what you understand is their top three pain points. And then you make sure that you respond to each one of them with data. So, for example, like they need somebody who can help them because there's so many competing priorities and all of it. There's so many initiatives and they need somebody that can just make sense of all it. Maybe that's the number one pain point. It's not just, oh yeah, I led initiatives and all of it. No, that's a job description. How have you done that in the past? Like when you exercise that skill, it resulted in you bringing in an additional $5 million, per year, right? Like that is data point that will make them perk because you're tying data solutions to their top frustration, right? So you do that for the top three. And when people have done this successfully, like they have they have blown the competition out of the water, right? So this is one thing that I would really recommend. This is my 2 cents. Like if you really want to stand out in this market, is make sure that you really communicate how you can solve their top three frustrations. Yeah,
I love that.
All right. So anything you want to add there before we go to questions?
No, let's go to questions. I see a lot of, I haven't been keeping I haven't been keeping up to speed on all the chat, but I see some really good stuff in there.
Yeah, so I'm going back all the way to the top. Hey Shelly from Chicago. Hey Husnia from Virginia. We have Tbilisi, Georgia. See, we're from Tbilisi, Georgia. Hello. All right. Hello from Nigeria, Cambridge. Okay, so Alanka says, unfortunately, many organizations are not following a structured change management approach when adopting AI. As a result, the learning curve remains steep, and many organizations are unable to realize the full value of their AI investments relative to the cost involved.
This is a big one. I mean, I agree. And that's why, I was saying, like, your title might not be project manager in the future. That's okay. It might have to do more with change management. It might have to do with like risk management. We haven't talked yet about like sort of program management, but you alluded to it, right? It's like, okay, yeah, like sitting at a higher level to make an initiative land, and maybe it's not just projects. And I know that I think this comment was in response to when we were talking about the ROI of AI not necessarily being realized. We all see those headlines about like X percentage of AI pilots are failing. In my opinion, I'm like, that's not a surprise. Like this is new territory that we're in. But also, I agree with this comment. It's also because we didn't master change management yet, right? So now we're like, cool, change faster because of AI, even though we weren't good at it. Like, kind of like like play soccer faster, even though you still don't know how to play. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, change management is so important. I don't know if you've also noticed this as well. It's like, people sort of underestimate change, and like but at the end of the day, like that, it causes a lot of problems. Like when you don't plan for change, but it's like, oh yeah. So I don't know. I've seen that a lot. Like it's almost like, I know what needs to be done. But then failures of many projects is because we've not done proper change management. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then people say it comes down to communication as well, and I think it's intertwined.
Yeah. I think this is a good question from Amy. I hope I'm saying your name right. Amy Ami. Glad we're talking about disruption due to AI. Question for you both. What parts of the PM job are you seeing most likely to be automated in the next 12 to 24 months? And what should PMs double down on to say valuable? What do you think?
I mean, I'm going to go through the regular ones. I think to a certain extent, status reporting, checking in on progress,
Right.
like even to a certain extent, like initial project planning. I think like some of the mechanical bits of that are already being automated right now. Folks in my community are, they're solving the problem of like trusting the data enough that their status report agent is something that is viable. Not should we do this, but how do we make it something that humans can trust? But I think in terms of doubling down, like as long as humans are still working together and in the picture, it's not just agent to agent work, then like there's those human skills are going to be really important. And I don't just mean like, like there's this sort of like, general malaise or the resistance to like some of the more woke stuff. But what I mean is like persuasion, manipulation, being compelling, being convincing, getting people on side, inspiring people. Like we're still going to need to do those things. And again, I wouldn't, just like you said, like it's not like you enter your interview and you're like, oh yeah, I'm very good at conflict resolution. I don't think it's just that. I think it's tell the story of value within that. But I think that is important because of even the earlier comment about change management. Like it's the human component that makes change management hard. It's the communication, it's getting people on side. It's about, sharing, accurate information and setting expectations and getting people involved so they feel like they're participating in change and not having it handed to them. That's all human stuff. Right. And I think it's still going to be important. But again, that alone is not valuable. How you mobilize it and the story you tell around it, that's what's valuable.
Right. No, that makes complete sense. And one to just add, I think many people already know this is note taking. So we have very good note takers now. But just one thing there. So I remember there was a time in my career whereby like I wasn't feeling as confident in a technical environment. So I just thought, okay, I'm gonna make myself useful, and like I really clung on to the administrative type work, right? I'll book meetings. Because I was really, I was trying to make myself useful. So I feel like if I do that now, like I will be even in bigger trouble. So I guess my advice to myself then would be, okay, I mean, it's good to be useful, but there are other things that you bring to the table. So, of course, try to show up your skills and all of that. And I think maybe then for me it was more of a confidence thing, because I'm dealing with engineers who are super smart, and I'm feeling like, okay, how can I make myself useful? So I'm gonna go take notes and book meetings. But we need to sort of rise, above that. Like, what is the goal of this entire thing that we're doing, right? And how can you be a partner to the person, the sponsor, the executive, or the person who is on top? Like, how can you be a partner? Because that's what we do. We execute. We're not just booking meetings and facilitating. We're helping you get to your end goal, right? So I think that would be my advice to myself. It's like, yeah, how can I partner to help you get to your end goal, and not just I'm gonna just take notes and do stuff.
I love that. It's like, how do you get to the end goal? Like, note taking was the thing. It's like, okay, well, no one remembers what happens in meetings, and then we don't achieve our goal. Right. We don't have to take meeting notes anymore because of AI, but we still need to do what is necessary to achieve our goal. And I think that's a really good lens.
Right. All right. Moving on. Hey, Joanne from Atlanta. What is this?
Oh yeah, I haven't followed that link yet.
No, Baltic Synchronization Project. Okay, I don't know. Oh, it's an award winner. Okay, I guess I can take a look at that project. It's always interesting. There was another project that won an award. I think it was what's his name? The guest we had on, Philip Maris. He mentioned like there was this aircraft project where they finished. Was it some ridiculous amount of time sooner, like an aircraft project, and they used critical chain project management for that, and it won a PMI award. So
very cool.
I recommend people also check that out. Just trying to get better with the craft. All right. By the way, if you have questions, just keep on type them, and then we will try to get to them. What's this conversation about spell check? Were you following this conversation?
Yeah. Well, it was in the vein of like I was saying that, you know, being fluent in AI is going to be about as exciting as being able to type in a few years' time, and I think I really like that. It's like, yeah, like it's going to be, you know, the spell check of the future, right? But I like that it, like, the metaphor got taken further into being like it still requires judgment, right? You know, and like, you know, especially in the English language, we have so many homonyms and, you know, all these things that can be used in different contexts, and it's like, just because there's a little red squiggly line underneath doesn't mean your job's done. Yeah, it still requires human taste and human judgment.
Yeah. So this question from Lauren, from middle management, my take is performance over reporting, performance / reporting, etc., can be done by some tools, AI or not. So if you cut 50% of the work of 2 managers, do you fire one to reduce the cost? I'm not sure I get the question. Do you, Galen?
I mean, I think I'm following the logic here, right? It's like, okay, if you can then replace a human to reduce the workload of 2 humans by 50%, that you fire one to reduce cost. And I think it's like most businesses, I think at a high level would say yes, but I don't agree because there's 2 people involved there, right? So like I think what we always misunderstand is, like, you know, the way our brains work and focus, right? And like and even the way that we can add value to certain things. So suddenly, if 2 people were doing a job and it got 50% more efficient, the math says that you would fire one of them, but operationally, I don't think that would happen. I don't think that would be the case, right? You're going to lose a lot of things in terms of like the way the work is done. I think I'm trying to flip it, and I wrote this article. I should probably find the URL and put it into the link, because I'm interested in people's thoughts, especially the folks in this room. But it's like, what are the alternatives when you're under pressure as a middle manager to replace your project managers or anyone with AI? And I think there's a lot of things that you lose that are a little bit more, I don't know, that just like the less visible things in terms of like leadership and accountability, and like a way to kind of sort of deliver change. There's a number of things that I think go away when you try to replace a person with AI today, that I don't think is always understood because people are doing this math. But I think the other side of it is like, okay, cool. Like, what can you do with 2 people that you obviously you think are bright enough and performant enough to have within your organization, and they have, you know, an extra whatever 20 hours a week? What are you going to do with that? Like, that's the other question I'd ask. I'd be like, cool, like, now's a great opportunity to, like, Mukhtar, what you said. It's like, okay, well, maybe they spend some of their time training other people to do project management, so that those little projects that, like, create a huge amount of drag in an organization go better, right? Cool. They become an ambassador of project management. They can be the person who's like crafting, you know, AI workflows, you know, and thinking about the process because they're process oriented. Like, there's more that these people can do. And I think if you're that person who is like, yeah, no, like they're just going to sit on their hands and like there's nothing that we can do with them, like that was already a problem before AI, right? If there's no more value that you can add to an organization, or people aren't aware of it, then yeah, that's gonna, you know, stymie your ability to be the person who's like, cool, I've got like 50% of my time got freed up, and now I'm going to add even more value. And they're like, yeah, cool, let's go.
Right. No, I think that we are not even there yet when it comes to AI being able to actually replace managers. I think maybe it's just, I think there's a lot of hype and just, you know, but it could be just a misunderstanding of what the person actually does. Because I mean, I don't know of an AI tool right now that can replace all what a PM does. Yes, there are aspects, right? But when it comes to, I mean, help a team convince a developer not to jump ship, right? Your star developer, like, you know, so there's so many things. There is, you know, just trying to calm people down, preventing burnout. Like, yeah, there's just so many higher level things that I don't think.
But I will say that, like, in this scenario from Laurent, it's like, it's still a human. They're just doing like the workload of 2 people instead of 1. So they're doing the human stuff
Right,
across, twice as many things,
right, right.
because some of the things like we mentioned, note taking and planning and
Right.
risk identification and things are being
Fair
handled
point.
by AI. But I agree with you. I think like the quality of the performance there is like, I think the wrong idea is to think of AI to, especially in project management, to be like, cool, AI cut away 50% of your like administration, like admin stuff. So now you can manage twice as many projects. Like I think that's the wrong way to look at it. It's a very
Mm,
linear scale
right, right,
versus like what businesses actually need to do, which is reimagine how work gets delivered
right.
and then like arc in
Mm,
terms of value, not like a linear value amplification, but like an exponential one. Anyways.
sure, 100%. All right. I mean, speaking of PM role positioning, what's the single biggest mistake PMs make when they try to level up, and how do you spot it early?
Whoa, what do you think about this one?
I was hoping you will speak on this, Taylor. All right. No. So I think this ties into what we're speaking about. I see. So so there are a couple of things. So number one, I think that a lot of us are very, very close to what we've done. So sometimes, like when we are describing things, we expect people to just get it, right? So
Mhm.
I think sometimes we are not the best storytellers of what we've done, right? So it always helps to have like an outsider perspective and just be critical. Like, all right, based on what you've, look at my portfolio, look at my resume, look at it. Like, do you feel like I'm really positioning myself? Like, do I grab your attention? And so that's one point. The second thing is that I find one of the big mistakes that people make is that they don't quantify the impact of the results.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is, and this is across the board. It doesn't matter your level of seniority. Like even people that are very experienced, they forget to do that. So their artifacts end up looking like a job description,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And it's very easy. It's very easy to forget, but it's also not that difficult to quantify impact and results. And one of the things that I see many people struggle with my clients is like, I don't remember all my metrics. I don't remember like
Mhm.
but and I often push them like, okay, there's so many. So there's revenue, there is efficiency, there is but if you cannot even quantify the results, you can also even quantify the actions. Right? Like if you look for any noun, like any noun, this is a trick. Just look for any noun in what you've described. Usually you can quantify a noun,
Hmm.
right? I led a team, I've managed teams. How many people were in that team? If
Mhm.
you just even add in, I led a team of 5, that already makes that sentence a lot stronger than just I led the team. So like that's a little trick that to really help to start to bring out your story, right?
I
Yeah,
like
I don't
that.
know. What do you think?
I'm gonna flip that, and I'd say the other thing I see, the other big mistake I see PMs make as a hiring manager, I'd see this a lot too, where they over-index on exactly what you just said. So like earlier we were talking about like, oh, like this project actually unlocked $5 million of extra revenue, and they kind of stroll into the interview with this sort of like fake it till you make it attitude to be like, yeah,
Mm,
I made the business $5 million single-handedly, like peace out, right? Like, and it's like, no, you didn't. You contributed towards it. Like, if you're
right.
trying to like talk a big game, there's such thing as talking too big of a
Of
game.
course. Yeah.
And I think, and that's also a know your audience thing too. Like,
Right.
and I think the other thing that I would never, can I say this? Yeah, I would never hire a PM who told me that all of their projects went perfectly or that went really well. Like I want to hear about how you deal like in fire. When you're that like dog in the fiery room, that like meme, how do you act? Like that's always what I'm looking for. And that is like it speaks measures to me in terms of seniority or putting someone in a senior role because it gets messier, it gets more chaotic. There's more like to deal with and not more of the same. I think that's the other thing I'd say is that like
Right.
don't expect your big leap to be like cool. Like I've been doing $1 million projects for a while. Now I'm ready to do $5 million projects by just doing more PM stuff harder. And like it's like no, you yourself are on a journey. You're not perfect. You have the skills and the tools to deal with things at that level of the game, but things haven't gone right all the way through. And like
Right.
I would actually, depending, this is a know your audience thing, but like there is going to be that interviewer or that person who's like making that decision on your promotion who wants to know that you like have the humility to know that you didn't single-handedly make $5 million. If you did, then why are you even working there? Like, go create
Right.
$5 million for yourself somewhere else. And then also the humility to and the growth mindset to know that, cool, like, yeah, we encountered challenges. Here's how I solved it. It was tough. Like, we ran into these problems. Like, I didn't do it alone. I wasn't like this like superhero that came in and like fought off the baddies and like that was it. I worked with people. We solved complex challenges. We facilitated good decisions by surfacing the right information. Like, there's like know your lane as well, right? It's like people don't want to hear that, like suddenly you enter an interview and your resume reads like a PM, but in the interview you sound like you're trying to be an executive. It's like,
Right.
I don't know. There's this believability aspect to it that damages
For sure.
credibility for me. That's usually a resume in the bin for me.
Yeah, no, 100%. And especially like with AI now, there's, like it just feels very inflated. And one of the things, one of my pet peeves is in boosted efficiency. Like, I don't know, AI is, I don't know if you see that, like a boosted efficiency by 75%. Like, what does that mean? Like, boosted. Everybody's boosting it.
I mean, that's a good one to, I don't know. Do we have time to go into that one? Because I think that's good. You said quantifiable, and I think
Sure.
I think you're right. I think it's like 15% operational efficiency gain. Sounds like fluff, right? Sounds like you may as well just put the word synergy in there. But actually, if you unpack it, there could be a lot of things, right? Like, for example, I'm a fan of saying like, hey, listen, like, yeah, I put like this like, agentic workflow in place, or even just like a Zap or whatever that, shave 2 hours off of every PM's time every week. Cool. Like, great. That's actually, how many PMs? 5 PMs? That's 10 hours a week. Is it like making millions of dollars? No. Is it like an efficiency mindset to be like, yeah, we could probably do this better? Yeah, absolutely. And that reads well in my books to be like, okay, you're thinking about the work. You're not just doing it because that's the way we've always done it. You're thinking about ways that we can make it better, smarter. And also you're understanding the like value to the business. Great. Like, yeah, I didn't want my PM spending 2 hours a week, like finding a timesheet and copying and pasting it into Excel so that they could like slurp it into Asana. Like, no, like I'd rather them be doing other things. So if you can unpack it and explain it, I think it is worth it, because people are looking for efficiency right now. But the buzzword level, you need to unpack that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think, my issue with that is just leaving it at that and thinking that sounds, very convincing, but just adding context, like, okay, in brackets, from 3 hours per week to 1.5 hours, just putting that in a bit of context. The other thing that I would just add there is I usually like to remind people that the person who is interviewing you or hiring you is probably a master at that job that you're interviewing for. So you can't BS them, right? So, I think sometimes we forget that, like, look at your things from a critical lens. Like, all right, this is going to land on the desk of somebody who is a master at my job, and that's why the person was probably promoted, right? So if you look at it with that lens, then you would try to cut out the fluff, or actually just add good context to the fluff, right? Because a lot of fluff can end up damaging your credibility, like you mentioned. Like, okay, there's no way. I mean, I'm a great PM. I never actually I haven't I don't have 100% on-time completion on all my projects, and I've been in this game for a long time, right? So you wanna just keep that at the back of your mind. All right, so we have a lot of questions that we're like way over time. So do we wanna just go to recommendations? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do that. And I was actually looking to be like, can I save this chat? Because there's some really good stuff in here.
Yeah.
And if it's like, if we've got posterity on it, and especially with the LinkedIn folks, actually, and YouTube, like, I think we can maybe we take a few of our faves and we answer offline. I don't know.
Yeah. So all of this is gonna be, I know on LinkedIn it's gonna be on the event page. Like, we're gonna see the comments. So yeah, maybe we can look at the questions. There's so many good questions. This was amazing, but sorry we can't get through all of them. But maybe we'll try to get to them offline. But yeah, so Galen, recommendations. What's one book you recommend?
I would say there's a book called The Change Cheat Code. And, full transparency, my friend, Dr. Liz Lockhart-Lance, one of the co-authors with Suzanne Rudenitsky. I'm probably butchering her last name, but my main point is this. We've been talking about all along change management done right and done wrong. I've worked in consultancies where change management is like this big art form, and there's, the valley of despair, and it's like very complicated. But ultimately, change is everywhere. And I think to be able to build even a little bit of muscle there by simplifying it just a touch, they've done that. And folks in my community are reading it. They're taking it to heart. They're using it in their PM practice because it's not like they have a change manager that they're working alongside. They are probably responsible for delivering that change as well. Simplifies it, gives you a nice little framework, not the usual change management stuff. Like I know that I value the pro size stuff and all of that other stuff, but sometimes change is not, enterprise. Sometimes it's mini, but sometimes it's every day. Super good little guidebook, super easy read, super useful.
Amazing. My book recommendation will be Shift by Ethan Crow. So, I mean, I love reading books, but this is one that I read recently that I really like. So basically it's about how we can shift our emotional state, right? I know it might sound a bit like, okay, do I really need to know that? But for me, I think it had a pretty profound impact on me because there's so many that, like, this is a science, like he's done research into it. And because at the end of the day, like we are really controlled by, or we're really impacted and controlled by our emotions day in, day out, right? So it's about being able to move from one emotional state to the other. And then there are different factors, like you can use like things around you, and then you can also use like different external factors as well. So I really liked it. I feel like especially when we deal with burnout, like we're in a profession where we have like, I don't want to call it that, but it almost seems like, yeah, for lack of a better word, there is a burnout epidemic in the PM space. I think that that's a pretty good book, right? So that's my recommendation. All right.
I love that.
What's one app you recommend, Galen?
I mean, I've been playing around with Notebook LM recently, which I think I can't remember if it got folded into Gemini completely or not. But of all the things, I started using Notebook LM. I know it does a lot of things, but one of the things that I love doing is just like checking a few documents or articles at it that people have shared with me and having it sort of like create a little podcast between two AI co-hosts, and I'll listen to it back. You can also like chat with it like it's a live radio show. That was its original purpose. I know it does a lot more. People in my community, they're using it as their like living source of truth for like project onboarding. Like there's a lot of different use cases for it, but I think in terms of like, I don't know, like you said, right? Like everyone's kind of like picking up, Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT. It's a general tool. You're having conversations with it. But I've been liking getting into like that middle area where there's a use case that it's like, okay, well, it doesn't do everything, but it's good at doing this thing to help your workflow, like taking clips from the internet, gathering your thoughts together, giving you something, you can listen to instead of reading, creating a little repository of documents that you can sort of chat with and share. Like it's been pretty useful for me. And honestly, I think it's a neat thing to pop into an interview as well, to be like, like the folks who like use a Kanban board for their home renovation projects. You're like, yeah, this is pretty nerdy, but I use Asana for like, my kitchen redesign. It still shows that you have fluency in it, adds a bit of levity, but like if people are going to want examples of how you've applied AI in the real world to a real use case, not just, I know how to prompt real good. So anyways, that was mine.
Yeah, no. I've heard a lot of good things about Notebook LM. I've also used it. But let me ask you this. Like, okay, so it's a lot of like synthesizing. Like you bring different things and you synthesize. Like, what's the? I'm playing devil's advocate. Like, why do I need that? Like, I can just read the different articles, go through it, and I'm good. Like, why do I need to put that in this blender of Notebook LM? And
I mean, I'd say two things. One is like time management overall, right? Like I think we're all overwhelmed. Like you and I both, I'm sure somebody probably sends you a link to something like 4 times a day, and they're not short. And AI in general, like ChatGPT, perfect for making something that should be short into something like massive, right? Which is, by the way, how a lot of articles are created these days. So suddenly you're like, how do I slice through that? I only want to know the thing. How do I shortcut my way in there? The other thing I'd say is just the way you learn. I'm not like you. I'm not a like avid reader. I don't mind reading, but it's not the thing I seek out these days. And if I can do something that doesn't sort of, demand my full focus, and if it's something that doesn't need my full focus, yeah, I'd much rather be able to like, whatever, like be like walking and taking in information. There's a question there around balance, like work-life balance. Like, should you be walking your dog and like, catching up on thought leadership at the same time? But I do think that, yeah, it depends on the way you consume information best, because there's no shortage of information. and you do kind of need to consume it. So that's my take.
No, that's a good point. And I'm also an avid podcast listener.
Yeah,
So
there
if
you
there's
go.
a topic that I'm trying to really, and I don't have the time, so yeah, that's a good one. No, appreciate that. So I think I will give Notebook LM another chance.
How about your app?
Oh yeah, I was sorry. Thank you. I was going to move on to the next recommendation. Mine, I actually have two: Notion and
Oh yeah,
Loom.
okay.
Yeah, so I
okay.
really love Notion. Like it's just a lot of it's almost like my knowledge data. Like my entire company is run. This is not a promotion for Notion. I just So my entire company is sort of run on Notion. I mean, there's some things that I wish I have some little annoyances with Notion, but I think I just like the flexibility and just the fact that it also has a nice visual interface and it can really house a lot of documentary. I prefer it to Confluence. I've used Confluence. Sorry, Atlassian folks. But yeah, so Notion and then Loom. So I don't know if you use Loom. Loom has saved me a lot of meeting times. Like you don't need to jump on a call. It's just I share my screen and I just speak about something. So those are my two apps that I recommend.
I like those. Those are both apps that are really listening to their market and understanding the use case. Like you said, Confluence on paper probably does the same thing that Notion does, but Notion's like really listening and framing their like feature set into like the way you work. Ditto for Loom. Yeah, love that.
Podcast you recommend?
Podcast. Okay, so this is not project management related, but I've been watching / listening to The Rest is Science with Hannah Fry and Michael from Vsauce. It's a podcast put on by Goalhanger. There's other ones in this series, but I really like it for adjacent thinking because they're just nerding out about like science and technology. They've got a really sort of entertaining banter. But as you're listening to it, I feel like I'm getting a little bit smarter. They're both super bright. B, I can contextualize it and like use it in the way I approach my work or my life. And, it's something it's a good listen that I think is useful and sort of, shares some really interesting knowledge along the way. And, in all of this, I feel like, the science and maths side of things can get a little more love out there. And I'm saying that as someone who is good at neither. So.
All right. I was going to ask, are you really good at math or science? Wow.
Nope. That's like, this makes me feel better. I'm like, but I listened to this podcast.
Nice recommendation. All right. So for me, it was difficult for me to pick one here, but I like the debaters. I don't know if you know the debaters on CBC.
I don't know it.
So basically, it's this show. Comedians come in and debate a topic. So it's just interesting how they sort of hold their own sides and debate their own sides through comedy, right? So it's very creative. It's really funny, and I love it. It's they take current affairs, current issues, and then they just debate it in a comedic way. Now the points are usually not true. I mean, it's comedy, right? So it's almost like stand-up comedy, but in a debating format. Yeah.
I really like that idea. I'm going to give it a listen. Also, because like debating is like a very good skill that we should see demonstrated more. And when you look at the news, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It seems like everyone's MO is just say stuff and then like cram it down their throat until they believe it instead of like convincing people. So anyways,
we need more of that. What's one productivity hack that actually works for you, Galen?
I have scatter now, right? Like I think like I'm too scattered. I'm into too many things, and like my time management has gotten really, really, really bad. And so like I've actually been just like doing a brain dump into an LLM. Sometimes Notebook LM. Sometimes like Gemini. I'd be like, just like maybe even like vocal address. I'd be like, yeah, here's a bunch of stuff that's on my mind. There's so many things like in my inbox, flashing in Slack. Things that I'm supposed to do, dates, and I'm just gonna like, like kind of like dictaphone them in. But it's like a dictaphone that I don't have to like listen back to. I can actually ask it. I can be like, hey, okay, cool. So I have this like, conversation like in ChatGPT where it's just kind of like, hey, okay, like what did I say about this thing? Have I got all the things? Like it's just like brain dumping and requerying it. It's been working sort of for me. I do want to make it more useful. I don't want to necessarily like, outsource thinking or like try to have a second brain, but I do benefit from like the scatter of my thoughts in here becoming something more accessible and just like not forgetting about important stuff. So that's been one thing.
Right. No, no, I really like that. And I think I've also done something similar, where it's like I just dump my thoughts, and then I like how it helps me organize, because sometimes I'm having trouble organizing my thoughts, right? So I just sort
Mhm.
of dump it, and then it organizes it and even gives me some insight. So I've done that a few times, and yeah, I've been quite surprised. Yeah. So for me, post-it notes, like
Oh.
every every day I take a fresh post-it note, like a small one, and I write the top 3 to 5 things that I want to accomplish.
Nice. Nice.
Um, yeah, but so I think I need to have like a smaller post-it note, because I have like the mid-size one, and like it's a struggle to keep it to 3 to 5. So I think
Mhm,
now I
mhm.
need to get like a really tiny one, and it's like, yeah, it
Yeah.
has to
Or
be
like
three to
one of those really big Sharpie markers, right? Like the poster paint ones.
yeah, get one thing done today. All right,
I love that.
amazing. Amazing. All right, so we've come to the end of this discussion. I had fun. This was really fun for me, and thank you all so much for chiming in the comments and the questions. And we'll try to get to some of those questions offline. Yeah. So Galen, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
For the digital project manager, find us at thedpm.com. We send a bi-weekly newsletter. We've got some courses, we've got a community, and we just like give knowledge away for free in our articles. So check that out, create a free account. We're not spammy. We just want to deliver a lot of value. Also, if you want to connect with me, I'm one of two Galen Lowe's, I think, on LinkedIn. So I'm the one that looks like me. And come find me, come connect. I would love to sort of chat. I hope we do get, you and I can go and like look at some of these questions. Like, this is a great audience. So thank you all very much.
Yeah. No, amazing. So, and for me, you can connect with me here on LinkedIn. We also do have a Substack where we share free information. I share a lot of free information here on LinkedIn. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Substack, please, do subscribe. It's free to you. It helps us out. And if you're listening to this on Apple and Spotify, do give us a 5-star rating if you enjoyed this. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. And this was fun. All right. Take care, y'all.
Love this. Thanks, everyone.